I'm all emotional today. I'm telling you, having kids messes you up. You get kids, and then you hear stories about what's happening to other kids around the world, and then I start crying, and you think, man, if I was in that spot, how would I handle it? And oh man, it's tough. So today I'm kind of an emotional wreck. So forgive me. Forgive me. My babies broke me emotionally. It's great to see you all. How are you guys doing today? You awake? Yeah, that's good. You ought to be. It's good to see you early service. We begin a brand new series today. Series called Live It. And it's actually going to be 1 Thessalonians 5 is going to be our text for the next few weeks. But to set the stage right, to really prepare the way for this, I'm actually going to look at Galatians 2:12. I'm going to look at some other scripture first, and then we're going to move into this, okay? So we got to set the stage to prepare for 1 Thessalonians 5. A lot of study over the next couple weeks, and it's going to be really good. I actually have, we made these. I want to remind you, because the whole point of this is taking the truth that's in us and making it apparent and visible in the world. Our greatest witness, I'm going to say this over and over and over again in the weeks to come. Our greatest witness is our satisfaction in Jesus. That's your greatest witness. Your greatest witness is not you getting a great job or having your body healed of a disease, or that's not your greatest witness. Your greatest witness is not God giving you tons of money. Your greatest witness is not living to be 100. Your greatest witness is not being a really good athlete. Your greatest witness is your complete and absolute satisfaction in Jesus wherever you're at. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're involved in, your satisfaction in Jesus is your greatest witness. Okay, so here's the deal. If you're struggling with a sickness, and people go, how can you handle this? And you say, Jesus is enough. When you're searching for a job and you're in between work, right? Can't find a job and you're searching for work and it's not coming together and it's not working out right and you're going through, people go, how do you handle this? How do you handle that tension? How do you handle not having work? How do you deal with maybe feeling like you've lost your purpose? And you say the words, Jesus is enough. We talked about this even last week when I walk into my grandpa and he's on his last days of his life, right? And we're there together, and my grandpa, through his life and his words, Jesus is enough. He satisfies more than a job could. He satisfies more than living an extra 10 years can. He satisfies more than being wealthy. He satisfies more. He satisfies more than staying young. He satisfies more than being beautiful. Jesus satisfies more. And when you are absolutely satisfied in Jesus, when He awakens you in your heart and you are satisfied in Him, that is your greatest witness. It's your greatest witness. I'm going to invite our ushers to come up. We created these little bands. I need to think. Where's Kathy's in here somewhere? Hi, Kathy. Kathy's my creative person. Pretty much everything that looks cool, I don't do. And so Kathy's the one that makes all the cool stuff for us. So we have these little bracelets. It just says Live It. It's the title of our series. You can grab these. Bracelets is the wrong word. What's the right word we came up with? Wristband. Wristband. Got it. Okay. So these are wristbands. I hear bracelet is too girly. So these are wristbands. If you're a girl, you can call it a bracelet. If you're a guy, wristband it is, I guess. There it is. So you can grab this. It says Live It. It has Galatians 2:20 on there. That's going to be our memory verse for the next couple of weeks. That's right. Like children's ministry, we're going to work on a memory verse. I love it. Live it, right? So grab this, put it on, and we're going to talk about it as you get these. So the whole morning is going to kind of be about this bracelet. Galatians 2:20 is our memory verse. While they're handing it out, you can listen to this. I think I even have it on the screen. You guys can put it up there for them. And I have this memorized in in the NIV. I memorized it years ago. So I promise I will say this wrong because I'm having you memorize it in the ESV, but I memorize it in the NIV. So I'm still relearning it. But it's this. Galatians 2:20 is, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live, that's the ESV version, I now live in the flesh. I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. Galatians 2:20, okay? I'm going to read this again, and then we're going to read it together. So one more time, I'll read it to you, then we'll read it together. I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. Galatians 2:20. All right, let's do this together. Are you ready? I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me. Galatians 2:20. All right, that's what's on your wrist. That's what's going to be the core of the next few weeks. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we want to mirror in our culture. We want this concept to be awakened in you at a whole nother level. Your desires, your wants, your thoughts are all prayerfully before God are all going to become subsidiary. They're going to step back. They're going to become second place to the nature and heart and power and grace and majesty of God. That's what we're after. We want to be satisfied in Jesus. I mean, deeply satisfied. Like we're not afraid of our retirement falling apart. We're not afraid of death. We're not afraid of hardship. Because the hope that Jesus has given us is so strong. Satisfied. I came across a quote the other day. I actually wrote it. Maybe you guys read this. It was in the Fisher's Current. I wrote an article for the paper, or the article I did write, the column I did write. I wrote about this a couple weeks ago. It's most Christians are educated way beyond their level of obedience. Most Christians are educated way beyond their level of obedience. Okay, now I'm going to read this again and look at the words on the screen. Pay attention to this. Think about it. Most Christians, you and me, most people sitting in churches, most people that are going to be in the services today, most people that are going to be in our services over at Allisonville and Berkshire, most people that are going to be down at Bethany, most people that are going to listen to this on the radio, most people that will watch this online, people in our early service, people in our services after this, right? Most Christians, people outside of our network of churches, out of our group, people outside of this, all across, most Christians are educated beyond their level of obedience. I got a really great response from people in the community, and I want to read, if that's okay, I want to read this column. It's 400 words, it's not long. I want to read this to you. I wrote this a couple of weeks ago for the Current. It was really fun, actually, to get the responses from the community. People, one guy actually wrote in, and he was like, ouch. That was it. That was the email. I liked that one. Sometimes the emails aren't so nice. So I'm going to read this to you, okay? So here it was. This was in the Current last week, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. Most Christians are educated way beyond their level of obedience, Dr. Maxwell, and it's awkward. Like an overweight doctor telling me I have to lose weight, or someone with a degree in business management who clearly lacks the capacity to lead. It's awkward. I get it, it's a cultural thing. I am absolutely a fan of our education system, but many degrees are designed primarily to learn information about something. Though this is a good thing, you don't have to be able to do any of the stuff you learn. You just have to memorize information about it, and then you're an expert. You're an expert if you learn the information about it, not necessarily if you can do it. The church can be the same. We are creating a culture of armchair quarterback Christians who are loud, opinionated experts shouting from the living room at their TV. They don't actually participate in giving to the poor or social justice or evangelism, but they are quick to tell everyone how it should be done. And it's awkward. Like the guy with the Jesus fish on his bumper who gives you the bird as he cuts you off in traffic. Like the angry blogger who fully believes in tolerance, yet vehemently rips apart someone who thinks differently. It's awkward. So do all those who claim to be Christian. I'm not asking if you think taking care of the poor is a good idea. I'm asking, do you actually take care of the poor? Do you actually do it? Not do you think it's a good idea, do you actually do it? I'm not asking if you agree with Jesus' concepts and ideas and ways of living. I am asking, do you actually try your best to live like him? I'm not asking if you believe prayer is a great idea. I'm asking if you actually pray. I'm not asking if you think spending time with your family is important. I am asking, do you do whatever it takes to make sure quality family time happens? I'm not asking if you think church is important. I'm asking if you actually make it a priority. Just because someone knows the right information about a topic doesn't at all mean they are living it out. And it's awkward. Are you educated beyond your level of obedience? What bothers me even more are the sideline, armchair, living room, you pick the metaphor, Christians who rip apart those who are trying to make a difference. Don't get me wrong, we need accurate, well-studied, deep-thinking Christians. But what we need more are well-read, theologically sound Christians who are actually living like Christ. If you're not, it's awkward. So I sent that into the paper, they printed it. And the emails started to come in. It's so fun writing for the paper sometimes. It's always the different venues that you get to communicate with community. And the emails start coming in. Those who are Christian going, wow, we needed that accountability. People who, I don't know where their faith is at, but I'm assuming they're maybe not Christian, writing in going, that's why I don't want to be one, kind of an idea. Because the church is full of people, and we're all guilty of this at some level. I mean, this is the way our culture works. You go to school and you learn information about something, and you graduate with a degree. Most degrees, not all of them are this way. But most degrees, you learn information about something, you graduate with it, and you're sent into the real world, and who knows if you can really do it. And our culture is so based on this mindset that it flooded into the church, that concept of learning is flooded into the church, so we learn more and more and more and more about God. But we don't really put the pressure on ourselves to live it out. And it's awkward. Most Christians are educated way beyond their level of obedience. I got to thinking about this and I thought, okay, I wonder, what would it be like if every Christian was just like you? Okay, so just for a second, in your seat at this moment, think about how you live your faith out. How you live your faith out. The kind of evangelist you are, how much you actually give to the poor, how you interact with your people at work. Think about the kind of Christian you are in your home with your own children. Think about the kind of Christian that you are in your marriage. What if every Christian was just like you? What if every Christian gave like you gave? Would the church be better or worse? What if every Christian served like you served? Would the church be better or worse? What if every Christian was a parent like you? Would families be healthier? What if every Christian surfed on the web to the same sites that you go to? What if every Christian was like you? What if everyone participated in evangelism just like you do? Would the church be growing? What if every Christian was just like you? John Piper says it really well. Dr. Piper, he says it like this. He says, the spiritual apathy of one believer lowers the Christian temperature. All right, so the spiritual apathy, now you got to remember, Dr. Piper is a scholar, so I'm going to read through this, and then I'll go back and interpret it. But the spiritual apathy of one believer lowers the Christian temperature. Being a polymath, which means, that word means a sage or highly educated person, is not the ultimate path to joy. It is not the ultimate path to joy. So being a wise sage who knows all kinds of information is not the ultimate path to joy. You don't need to know a lot of things to make a lasting, massive difference. You just need to be set on fire by a few glorious eternal things. I love that quote. I'm going to read this to you one more time. You ready? The spiritual apathy of one believer lowers the Christian temperature. Being a polymath, all right, is not the ultimate path to joy. You don't need to know a lot of things to make a lasting difference. You just have to be set on fire by a few glorious eternal things. And as I was reading through this, of course, this is all in preparation for studying 1 Thessalonians 5. What set these men on fire and their community with the people that they interact with? What set the early church on fire? And I began to think, even in my mind, what would set us on fire? Is it really me giving more and more and more and more information to you? There's a juxtaposition that exists in the scripture. Though our good works don't save us, Ephesians 2:8-9, if our salvation is not active, it may be dead, James 2:17. So there's this weird tension that exists in the scripture where we need to live our faith out, but our living of our faith out does not save us. We're going to talk about that in a second. I was teaching my son, my middle child, poor kid, we were moving from Dallas up here when we were teaching him to ride a bike. He had just started learning to ride a bike. And in learning to ride a bike, we ended up finding out we were moving, we pack it all up. We move up here. This poor kid, we end up going for a couple of years and we don't really teach him how to ride a bike still. And so he's 8 now. He should have been riding for a few years. And this summer, we finally had him back out again. We were like, okay. Actually, my wife was the one that noticed it. This is terrible. Just in the moving and transition and a couple of years, it's awful. You have these like bad parent moments where you look in the mirror and you go, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm terrible at this. Lord, somehow by your grace, help my kids to not fall apart. I mean, have you ever had that moment? I get those often. So I had one of those moments, and Leslie was like, you know what, we totally left this poor kid in the dust. We need to take him out, teach him how to ride a bike, and I get it. Riding a bike's minimal in the grand scheme of life. So we walk him out there, and we put him on the bike, and we're like, all right, ride this. Well, now he's quite large for this little tiny bike. And we take the training wheels off, and we put him on the bike, and of course we push him forward, and I'm running beside him, and he rides for a little bit, and it doesn't take long, and I push off on the back seat, and he tumbles and falls and gets scratched up, and it hurts. And he's mad at me. It's my fault. And so we get up, he gets back on the bike again, we try it again, and I'm like, son, you got to pedal. Like, you got to put your foot on the pedal, you got to push the pedal forward. So he figures this trick out, okay, where he can have one foot on the ground, get the pedal set just right, get the foot on there, and shove off really hard with one pedal, and then kind of coast for a little bit with both your feet on the side, and then when you lose balance, you can stop yourself, and it doesn't hurt. Smart kid. And as I'm watching him do this, I'm realizing that that's what he's doing. So he's maybe getting his balance down, but he can't really ride the bike until he risks it. He's got to risk it, right? Like he's got to get both his feet on the pedals, and he's got to create that tension and just keep going. And until he does that, it's always going to be this quick little push, and he'll go a little ways and then kind of slow down and stop. Then he has to reset that pedal and the bike tire, and it takes like another 2 minutes. And then he pushes off again, and he gets to going a little bit, and they'll stop again. We repeat that process. So I'm going, stop it. I love you as your dad. Stop it. Put both your feet on there and pedal. Dad, what if I fall over? That's what boys do. When I was a kid, we did this thing called play outside. It was awesome. We skinned up knees and broke bones and shot BB guns at neighbors and dogs and cats. It was fun. It was great. I loved it. You know, and I got in trouble with my parents. You'll be fine. We got like 9 doctors in our church. If you break something, we'll go over there. He's going to be okay. So I'm talking with my son, and as I'm doing this and I'm helping him, I realize, all right, now here's the Jesus juke. I mean, this is what happens when you're a pastor. You see analogies in everything. And so I'm watching my son do this, and I realize that pedaling a bike, it's kind of funny because, like, there are 2 pedals in your faith. And the one pedal is know the word, and the other pedal is do the word. Know the word, do the word. Know the word, do the word. Know the word, do the word. That's how you ride the Christian faith if it was a bike. You know the word and you do the word. That's what you do. And somehow in our culture, we've gotten to the point where we like the know the word pedal, and we push off on it, and we just kind of coast on know the word a little bit till our faith kind of comes to a stop, and we have to wrestle with a new big idea that challenges us. That's when people come to me and go, you know, and I get it. I'm a nerdy guy. I'm a deep studier person. So when people come to our church, I've heard this many times when people walk into our church. I like your church because I feel like I learn, you know. I just wasn't growing at the last place. Now, that's great. I love it that I'm nerdy, and I like that you enjoy all of my extra study and the extra blogs and the extra notes that I send out. I like that there's a whole bunch of us nerdy people that like to get together. But you need to know, just knowing the word isn't riding the bike. It's not. It's not riding the bike. You push off and you can coast for a little bit and it feels good, but you're never going to take off in your faith until you know the word, do the word, know the word, do the word, know the word, do the word, know the word. That's it. Man, and when you hop on this thing, man, when you take off, when you start to really begin to study the word, and then as soon as you get that study down, you do your very best to implement that truth, and it's know the word, do the word, know the word, do the word, then you begin to mirror the intent of Scripture. Do the word, doing the word, living your faith out does not save you. but it is absolutely how you live your Christianity out. Doing the Word. If you're a high school student, doing the Word may not look cool. You may not be in the right groups. You may not date the people that you want to date. It's the cost of doing the Word. College student, you may get counted off on your papers for your perspectives and implementing your ideas other than just receiving the information, but giving the information back out. In your workplace, you might lose great deals because of honesty, where if I would have just twisted that number, adjusted something a little bit, I could have made a ton of money on this. It will cost you to do the Word. But it won't cost you as much in this country, at least right now, as it is the people in the Middle East. Know the Word, do the Word. Know the Word, do the Word. Know the Word. That's it. Most Christians are educated way beyond their level of obedience. All right, so what to know and do? What to know and do? We're going to be done in just a few minutes. What to know and do. Number one, a follower of Jesus. I'm going to give you three things. What to know and do. What to know and do. Three things. All right, you ready? The first one is this. These are a little deep. In fact, when I wrote these the first time, my wife read through it and said, or maybe it was Kathy, when I do nearly a manuscript, so somebody wrote in the notes on the sideline, you better reword that. So I tried to reword this. These are deep thoughts, but I got three of them. Are you ready? And hopefully I tamed them down. The first one is this. A follower of Jesus kills on the altar, nails to the cross his agenda, and lives the life of Christ. This is what separates a student of Jesus and a follower of Jesus. Galatians 2:20. Wait a minute, my band fell in my sleeve. Let me try that again. I just lost the powerful moment. Here we go. That's what separates somebody who studies the Word and somebody who actually does it, right? A follower of Jesus and a student of Jesus. A follower of Jesus does the Word. There, see, that worked better that time. Was that not better? That's good. Galatians 2:20, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith through the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me, Galatians 2:20. That was the NIV version. I tell you, I'm going to get it wrong all the way through. But that's it. That's what it is. So here's the thing that's really interesting about us. Followers of Jesus, sacrifice, kill on the altar, nail to the cross, their agenda. If you are just a student of the Word, meaning you like the know the Word pedal, that's fun for you. You like to study the Scriptures. You like to study eschatology. You're the one that writes a note to me every week going, please teach Revelations. Or Revelation, it's singular, not plural, by the way. Please teach out of this. I mean, those of you that send me those emails and want to know and you want to go further, you want to, right? As you do this, as you work it out, as you move forward, you're the one, man. You love to know the Word. That's good. That's great. More power to you. But you got to do the Word too. And here's the thing that's interesting. So if you are a student of the Word and you're learning the Word and you're soaking in all the information, it's really easy to feel a level of holiness because you're always reading and studying. But it's only half of Christianity. It's only half of Christianity. You're a student of Jesus. You may not be a follower of Jesus. The church is full of people. I'm not talking about our church, but the greater church is full of people who are students of Jesus, but they're not really followers of him. Students of Jesus, but they're not followers of Jesus. They like what he says, but they don't do what he does. And their Christianity goes through little spurts where it moves forward with a cool new idea that they had, and then it piddles out and stops. And then they stumble across a new cool idea, and it moves forward, and then it piddles out and stops. And they're constantly on the hunt for a new idea. They're constantly moving from church to church and group to group and organization to organization, small group to small group, and book to book, and thinker to thinker, and version of the Bible that's been translated to new version of the Bible. They're always constantly moving, looking for something else to push that pedal forward a little bit. But the reality is they're students of Jesus, not followers of him. Because the person that lives 10 feet away in the house next door doesn't even know you're a Christian. Student of, not follower of. Crossway Say Note says it like this. Paul's former self, the person Paul was before,
the person was before he trusted Christ with all of his sinful goals and proud, self-exalting desires. He came to a decisive end. He chose to let all of his worldly accolades, his power, all his achievements, all that he wanted, he sacrifices it that he may live Christ. Now think this through for a moment. What if living Jesus was more important than getting your promotion at work? What if living Jesus, what if you would be more satisfied in your relationship with Jesus than you would be if you got that little pay raise? What if being satisfied in Jesus was more important? If you're in high school, maybe than dating that right person or being in a specific group. What if Jesus was more satisfying? Know the word, do the word. Know the word. We as humans have a tendency to pursue what we believe will satisfy us. We do this. Everything from a drug high to a raise at our job, we want things that we believe are going to satisfy us. We are in constant pursuit of personal satisfaction. We are in a constant, hot pursuit of personal satisfaction. It's why we marry. It's why people divorce. It's why people eat. It's why people engage in sexuality. It's why people pursue all kinds of random things, is because they are in hot pursuit of what they believe will satisfy them. Paul is saying something so profound and most miss it. The old covenant law that governed his life is now dead. He's giving up all those things that he thought would satisfy to let Jesus be his only satisfaction. So here it is. This is the moment. This is the place. This is the power of the band that is on your wrist, right? The words that are on this, what this represents. Paul, with all that he has learned and studied, all his influence, all his knowledge. We studied Paul a couple of weeks ago. Remember that? This brilliant, educated man, right pedigree, right influence, right? I mean, everything was going for him. He sacrifices everything earthly that he thought would please him just to be satisfied in Jesus. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live. But Jesus lives in me. That's my satisfaction. I want my kids to see their dad and to see his satisfaction is in Jesus. I want my wife in our marriage to see that my deepest satisfaction is in Jesus. I want the church that I am so blessed to serve in, that it's such an honor to work with you all. I love that I get to be your pastor. I love my job. I've been in the ministry since the fall of 1999, and I absolutely feel called to it. This is what I want to do. You know what would be a great end to my life one day? I want to be a 68, 70-year-old man, and it would be awesome, though it would be awkward for everybody else. It would be awesome to be up here declaring the word of God and then fall dead. You would hate it. It would be cool for me. That's it, man. I want everybody to see that my satisfaction is in Jesus. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live. He lives in me. That's it, okay? Here we go. The next thing. It's the first one. All right, in fact, I need to say this again really clearly. Your greatest witness is your satisfaction in Jesus. Your greatest witness is your satisfaction in Jesus. Your greatest witness at school, at high school, at college, your greatest witness in your work, your greatest witness to your children, the greatest witness that you have is your satisfaction in Jesus. Though I may be sick, Jesus satisfies. Though I may be old, Jesus satisfies. Though I may not have a job, Jesus satisfies. Though I may be single and desire to be married, Jesus satisfies. That's my pursuit. And the more that Jesus satisfies, the greater your witness becomes. And the more people look at you and go, wow, I want that. Your greatest witness is your satisfaction in Jesus. Number 2, though we are called to act on our faith, our actions don't save us. And I got to put this out there. Though we are called to act on our faith, our actions don't save us. Ephesians 2:8-9. This is a big deal for the Protestant movement. We tend to tie our actions to our level of satisfaction, or we tend to tie in our actions to our level of satisfaction, as in, my good works make us more saved than you. So what we do, let me see if I can explain this. What we do is, in our movement especially, we that tend to live our faith out, that know the word, do the word, those that are really doing the word and those that really know the word, those that are trying to peddle this, what we like to do is, instead of just doing this to glorify God, we like to look at people that are writing slower than us, and we act as if we're more saved than the people writing slower than us. And that's not true. You're not more saved. Those of you that have been Christians your whole life and you've been pedaling your whole life, that's great. That's what you're supposed to do because you're satisfied in Jesus. You don't pedal your bike. You don't move forward in Christianity to get more saved. You do it because you love Jesus and He satisfies. That's why you do it. But the person who lived an awful life, who had his back turned to God, and on his dying deathbed in the hospital says, I choose Jesus. And the only do that he had was, I choose. And that's not really a do, even according to Scripture. That's still not a do. Jesus does it all. That's all he has. He still gets into heaven too. You do your good works because you love Jesus and are satisfied in Him. That's why. I'm going to invite Jason to come up, and I'm going to do my third thing, and we're going to be done here. Your greatest witness is your satisfaction in Jesus. Our actions, number 3, our actions can, however, be a sign of what is going on inside. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3 again, one more time. 1, a follower of Jesus' sacrifice kills on the altar his agenda. So a full believer of Jesus works hard. It's continual. You don't do this necessarily in one moment. It's a life of choosing to let go of earthly satisfaction to hang on to Jesus' satisfaction. Number 2, we are called to act on our faith. Though our actions don't save us, we are called to know the Word and do the Word. And number 3 is this. Our actions can, however, in light of the previous, our actions can, however, be a sign of what is going on inside, James 2:17. So also by faith, if it does not have works, you probably memorize this, is dead. And if you keep going, 18, but someone will say, you have faith, I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. This isn't a contradiction of theology. It is a simple reality that your actions are most often a reflection of what is going on in your heart. Your actions are most often a reflection of what is going on in your heart. Leslie and I were talking the other day. And I asked the question to her, where do our kids see us making Jesus top priority? Where do they see that happening? And here's the hard thing with this, because you can't struggle with making Jesus a top priority until you come across something that wants to fight for top priority. Does that make sense? And so we started talking about things, and things came through my mind. Like I thought, okay, how about this? When we go on vacation and it's over a weekend, we will find a church to go worship in. We're just going to do it. We're going to make church a priority no matter what, wherever we go. And so we started talking about that a little bit, and then we started going, well, that almost sounds like we're these religious fanatics, and we don't necessarily want to be a religious fanatic, right? Like, how do you do that? And then as we were talking about it a little more, something hit me. The arrogant, awful, annoying religious fanatics are ones that do holy acts. Now you got to listen close to this or you're going to miss it. They're the ones that do holy acts because they like to be seen as great, and that's annoying. But people who so love Jesus and are so deeply satisfied in him. I mean, I remember going on some of my early dates with Leslie. I remember one of our first dates, we lived in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. We were going to Tulsa, the city. Little Bartlesville, we were going to drive into the city together. And I remember a couple hours before I went to pick her up, I was all ready to go, all dressed up. I remember getting in the car, sitting in her driveway, and my heart was racing. I remember her opening the door, and I remember thinking, you are so beautiful. And man, when we fall in love with Jesus like that, where he satisfies like that, when the music's played, I get a look at him and he's so beautiful. And when we go on vacation, I choose to worship at a church and not take a Sunday off. I choose to carve my vacations around church. I choose to serve. I choose to make it a priority, not because I'm arrogant, but because Jesus is so beautiful. And I want my kids to see their dad love Jesus like that. So you could call it a fanatic. But it's not because I think I'm good. I know I'm not. It's because Jesus is so beautiful. That's why I'm going to do the word. I'm going to try. I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to get it wrong. I'm going to lose my temper. I am an intense man. Ask my wife. But Jesus is so beautiful.